10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Game over.
Welcome to Game Over Montreal. We've got a win? What does that even mean anymore? We don't know. It's the Montreal Canadiens are undefeated in the Kent Hughes era, which is weird, but that's what we're going with. We're going to try to look at the positives in a crazy game against the Dallas Stars. I got two amazing guests with me tonight. SDPN's Julian McKenzie and Ryan Lambert from all over the place. How's
just
it going,
the
guys?
one place at this point, but
Is it only one? You're not with EP Rinkside anymore?
no, that's the one place I write for.
Oh well,
you're
also
saying 'cause
you
of the
do Puck
podcast.
Soup.
Sure, yeah.
He's collecting
Okay.
checks.
Yeah, two places. That's all over the place.
It's all over two places.
All over two places.
Some
All right,
people don't have any.
This is true. So we were
You're
chatting
not
before.
kidding.
We were chatting before the stream started. The last time Ryan was on was possibly the worst game of the year. So this one was a little bit more fun. Absolutely wild. I mean, I don't even know where to start with this one because I think you want to take the positive out of it because this was a fun game and the Canadiens haven't had very many fun games in this entire season, frankly. They had a nice little win there, which is always good. And, a couple of guys showing well for the new GM that, I mean, Tyler Toffoli, I think he's just such a difference maker, and the fact that he was able to come into this game and make a difference on the few plays that they actually had in the offensive zone was a massive difference maker. But overall, they kind of got their show ran, not necessarily at even strength, but overall, on special teams, the number that stuck out to me was I purposely didn't look at the shot attempts because Ryan said don't look at the shot attempts.
Yeah,
but I looked at the expected goals,
awesome.
and the Canadiens had 6.13 expected goals against per natural hat trick, which is the highest I have ever seen. So Sam
It's
Montembeault,
ridiculous.
hats off to you. Great performance, spectacular.
Ryan, do you want to let us know how many shot attempts were there? I really want to know this stat.
Yeah, so this is a game that finished, you'll remember, in regulation. And shot attempts in all situations. Montreal Canadiens, 44. The Dallas Stars, 110.
They went over 100. I thought it was going to be like 95, 96. That's
No.
insane.
110. I am currently going through box scores dating back to 2007-08, trying to find games with more than 100 Corsies in a game. The highest I've found so far is like depth of the bad Colorado era. Maybe not that deep, but 2016, January 23rd, the Dallas Stars put up 106 on Colorado in regulation. It's
always the Dallas Stars, apparently.
Literally, I've looked. So I've found
Pew
four
pew, the
games.
Stars.
I found 5 games, including tonight. I found 5 games in the behind the net era, the advanced stats era, with one team having more than 100 shot attempts. Dallas Stars have 4 of those 5 games so far.
Whoa.
Is that not crazy? Yeah,
That is
4 of those
insane.
5. Yeah, that's crazy. So I'm going to keep going. The max I've found right now is 106, but we might have watched history tonight, is my point. We might have watched the most shot attempts in a regular season game since 2007.
Wait, I have a question. So these games with the Dallas Stars, like how far back, just repeat again how far back we're going, because that makes me think like 4 out of those 5 games involving the Dallas Stars. Does that mean like Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin have basically just have been on the ice for all of these crazy games?
It's certainly looking that way. From everything's like between 2013 and 2015, 2016, something like that. So
Pretty
Tyler
much.
Tyler Seguin not on the Stars at that point, I don't think. Maybe. Yeah, no, he would have been, because that was after they traded that was after the Bruins traded him. So, yeah.
They traded him right after the Cup final loss against Chicago, right?
Yes, correct. So that's 2013, and this and
Mhm.
the one of the games they put up 100 on. Oh no, I take it all back. This is a Carolina Montreal game, another game where the Habs gave up more than 100 shot attempts. Is 12-31-13. They got out attempted 100-45.
I wonder if that's the
I'm up to
game
New
where
Jersey, by the way.
the Canadiens took 11 straight penalties.
You
Wait, no,
know,
2013. No, it wouldn't have been that one, because that was back way further back. That was like Kovalev era.
yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Anyway, point is, I'm up to the Islanders, and I've gotten like a couple in the 104 range, but no, okay. Toronto out attempted the Islanders in 2009, 116-56.
We always find a way to bring it back to the Leafs.
It's
But
always
that-
about the Leafs. You know what, Ryan? This is
that did
honestly,
go to
you better write an
overtime.
article about this now. You got to
That
go
went to
back.
overtime.
Yeah, I mean, you got to take it now, go through all of these, and figure out like how many times has a team put up 100+ shot attempts and lost. So I feel like when you're shooting that
And
much,
lost now, Christ. Ooh, that is a good
Right?
a good take.
That's pretty
it's
good.
a good angle, because
Yeah.
if you're shooting that much, you're probably trailing, right?
Yeah, you would think. Yeah, here's another game with the Rangers where they beat the Leafs. The Leafs out attempted them 104-58 a couple of years ago. So yeah, it's recent that this happened. This is in the last 2-3 seasons. So yeah, this is wild.
That is extremely fun.
110 shot attempts against
In regulation.
in regulation.
regulation.
That's the other thing. Yeah.
That is the sticker.
I was watching I was getting a lot of buffering on the Montreal broadcast. I don't know if that was an issue for you guys north of the border, but down here it was.
I had
and,
audio echo.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was
So-
like a weird point with like the audio kind of slowed down a little bit. It was weird.
Mhm.
On the TSN side, I can't speak for anyone who watched on LDS.
Well, anyway, point is I switched to the Dallas broadcast about halfway through the game, and they were saying 5 different stars hit a post tonight. That
A few
might
of
be a
them did hit
record.
posts.
At least 5, what it sounds like, and that
The
might
Stars
not be
were
counting
shooting.
that flurry at the end. Yeah, 110 times for my what it says here. Yeah, that was a wild game. It rocked.
Yeah, it
No,
was
man, like-
extremely entertaining.
Yeah, like I think there's a chance you could make an argument that this might have been the most entertaining Canadiens game of the season. There's a chance you could say it. I
There's
know maybe
not a
there's-
lot of competition. Julian.
There's like maybe like 2 other games. This is like their 8th win of the year.
Yeah.
There's not too many other games that you could probably think of that. But like, yeah, I mean, the Canadiens got off to a good start. They had that 2-0 lead. They managed to restore a 2-goal advantage when Dallas looked to cut into their advantage when they made it 2-1. And guys like Christian Dvorak were producing. You mentioned Tyler Toffoli off top. He was able to do well. I was pleasantly surprised. Who would have thought that it took the Canadiens hiring a new general manager for them to all get energized? Remember, this is a team that lost to Arizona the other night, and they woke up and they said, "Hey, we're not gonna do another dud like we did the other night."
Yeah, and we will
Counterpoint.
talk about Kent Hughes on the show a little bit later. We're gonna dig into that a little bit. I want to talk about the game a little bit first. And obviously, if you were watching me and Julian, you know that later on this week, we're going to be on the HIO show, talk in depth about Kent Hughes and where the Canadiens are going here. But just because he's doing my work for me a little bit here, Tyler Toffoli had a quote after the game. He says, this is from Eric Engels, friend of the show, "I want to be part of the solution. I want to be a guy who's a leader, who's looked up to. says Tyler Toffoli. So he's only got a couple years left on his contract, which is a fantastic contract, arguably the best contract on the Canadiens. I think this year he has been overall their best player. But the thing is Tyler Toffoli too valuable of an asset to keep through a rebuild? Because he's not going to be around for when they come out the other side, right? Like that. I feel like he adds a lot of value as a leader, as a guy who can help guide the next generation, but I don't know if they can afford to keep him.
This is a rebuild that the Canadiens should be. If you don't have a no trade clause, you are getting traded. Like, if you have any value at all, and I'm talking 7th round pick, see you later. Like, it's a really tough situation, and I just wrote about this today in talking about the new GM. Is Kent Hughes has to not only think about, okay, how do I get all these contracts off the books? How do I, the Canadiens this year cost like $95 million against the cap once you factor in.
They're like the highest
Yeah,
salaried team.
There is no more expensive team in the league, and they are the worst team in the league, right? So, and there are a million different reasons for that. I don't have to explain it to anybody, but the thing is, Kent Hughes not only has to figure out how do I get all these guys off the books for like a max return, he also has to think about what has the organization done so wrong over the last 3, 4, 5 years to get to this point. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
How many guys have they not developed as effectively as they should have? He has to look at that from the ground up. How have they lost so many trades in recent years? He has to look at that from the ground up. And, I think as a player agent, you probably have a pretty good sense of what guys are worth in a way that maybe a guy who's just been in a front office for 15 years or whatever does, or how that guy kind of a guy sees a team or an individual player or whatever. But, I just look at this and I say, literally call me for every single player we have under contract. I will take that call.
I think Ryan makes great sense. And I think that in almost any other market, you could think, okay, obviously with the team as is, you have to make these changes and everyone must go. But one thing that has been on my mind all day, pretty much since the announcement of Ken Hughes as GM, is just the very first thing he has to do is establish the fact that there's going to be a rebuild, or at the very least establish what plan is going to be in place. Remember, this organization went through reset after reset with Marc Bergevin. They tried very hard to not use the word rebuild. Jeff Molson, in his last press conference, he didn't use that word. He said the organization wouldn't be afraid to use it, but they never outright said it. Jeff Gorton never said rebuild in his press conference. Everyone is going to be looking tomorrow on Wednesday to see if the Montreal Canadiens, if Kent Hughes is willing to lay out his plan for the future, if that's something that they're going to do. If this team thinks that, one, the contracts that are there, like you just think internally, man, these are just contracts we just can't get rid of. We're just going to have to find a way to make this work. Or they just genuinely think they have guys like Josh Anderson and Tyler Toffoli who wanted to be around this team to win. They think there's still enough to keep. What's stopping Ken Hughes from going up and being like, you know what? We need to just reshuffle the deck with a few pieces. And if it weren't for COVID and if it weren't for injuries, this is a team that could compete. And I know Ryan's looking all bewildered. Hey, I'm with you. I think the Canadiens should restack the deck. And I really think they should go. I really think they should clean house and they should try to get as much as they can. But until they outright say we're going to rebuild this team, and Jeff Gorton, we all know he knows a thing or two about that. A lot of people are going to wonder if they could do that. And you could make the argument that with guys like Tyler Toffoli, especially him coming out straight up saying like, hey, like I see myself as part of the solution. And I also think there's an argument to be made like, yeah, he could be. I think if the Canadiens lose out on a guy like him, like I get it, he could be too valuable, but he does score goals and the Canadiens need guys who score goals. Like there's arguments to be made for the other side too, but I think they need to rebuild this team. And the most important thing for Wednesday for that press conference, they have to let everyone know they're rebuilding for the sake of just the fans knowing that they're not just watching a team that's, trying to compete and win when they know the team is as crap as they are, but also just a sense that they could turn the page on this era of the Canadiens and look forward to the future. But Ryan's right. Like I try to just sell high on anybody that anyone's willing to take.
Yeah, I think the whole situation with Kent Hughes, I don't think he would have been hired if his plan was like, well, we'll just be back at it next year and we'll be just as good as the year before.
Absolutely
where we
true.
Only made the playoffs because of COVID. I fully believe that era of just hoping to make the playoffs and maybe Carey Price will carry us to a cup is over, because frankly, like, Price isn't playing. I think the writing's on the wall that if he gets back to that level, it's not going to be for a very long time. He's the same age as I am, which is turning 35 in a month, so like, it's
way to plug your birthday, I guess.
No kidding.
I know, right?
Jeez.
To the date, February 18th. Wish me well on that day. I'll be covering Olympic stuff. I guess that's a
Sure
bit
sounds
of an
like you want
announcement.
like gifts and stuff. Oh,
No.
whoa. Olympic stuff.
Ooh, Olympic stuff.
Well,
Wait a minute. Whoa.
Yeah.
I don't know about this.
You don't know? Yes, you do.
Waking up
don't
at
BS.
3 a.m.
I'm trying to show some showmanship and sell this thing. Jeez. Play along.
There will be more details to come. I will save it for the boys at SDPN to announce, but there will be some interesting things going on this channel around the time of the Olympics. But yeah,
There's
I think,
another announcement coming tomorrow too, I think.
yes,
but
I think there is. Yeah, there's tons of announcements, but
I've said too much.
I know. I already got Adam mad at Steve earlier this week because Steve told me something he wasn't supposed to. But I digress. I won't dig Steve in even further. The whole situation with Hughes coming in, obviously, like, a rebuild is going to happen. I'm fully on board with that. But there was a comment here on the stream chat that I wanted to just shout out a little bit from Musicality, saying, I was all on board the trade Toffoli train earlier this season, but now I wonder about the importance of keeping Toffoli for his leadership and his desire to be a Hab. We have too few players who care. And I feel that because you watch how this season has gone, and there are a lot of guys on that team, Mike Hoffman, who don't give a fuck. Like, they don't care. And listen, I'm being harsh, but he does not care. Great defensive play in this game, late in the game, notwithstanding. For the most part this season, he has not given a crap. So having a guy who actually wants to be there, who signed in free agency, I think that there is like some political aspects to it that you don't want to just throw that guy away when they chose to be here. There's like something to that, and like carrying something through to the next building blocks, like, you can't just throw away everyone. I feel like every rebuilding team that throws away all their vets gets stuck in the rebuild. You have to have somebody to help them learn the NHL game. So I feel like it's guys like Toffoli, like Lehkonen, they're the ones that you want to keep around, even if they might end up netting you a first round pick in a trade. It's like, unless it's a 2023 first round pick, is it the best?
Well, I think the counter argument to that is, like, yeah, I mean, you want guys around so you don't get like absolutely humiliated every night. Like, like if you do what the Coyotes are doing right now, and I know they just beat the Canadiens, so like I get it, but like what they're doing, and they're like, by the way, our top line center tonight for the 83rd game in a row is Jay Beagle. Like, that's you can't like the Canadiens. Nobody should want to do like that's. Even me, as a guy who's like, if you're not in the top 8 in the league, you should be blowing it up. Like, I think that's maybe a bridge too far. But with that having been said, like the thing you said about like, oh, you got to have some veterans here, show the guys how to play in the NHL. Yeah, and what you do is you call up the Minnesota Wild and you say, who's a guy who's like 33 and kind of sucks that you want to get rid of? We'll take him for that extra second round pick or whatever. he'll be the Jay Beagle of this team. But
yeah, they just need
like,
to be a good guy, right?
yeah, that's exactly right. Like a perfect example of this, I think, is like a Milan Lucic type. Say what you want about Milan Lucic's game, and Lord knows I have. You know, if you get guys who give a shit as much as Milan Lucic definitely gives a shit every night, like that helps, I think, more than just having a guy who, you know, again, like you're giving up a Tyler Toffoli's value, right, in exchange for what I'm not sure what, you know, like, yeah, he's a good player, but like, good, you know, what's Claude Giroux gonna get you for 1 year, or not even half a season at this point, less than that by the deadline? He's gonna get your first round pick, right?
For sure.
Now Tyler Toffoli, when he's healthy, is just as good as Claude Giroux, I would say. And you know, you don't even have to get into the whole thing of like, you know, Claude Giroux's a center and Toffoli's a winger. Claude Giroux's not a center anymore, folks.
This is true.
And so you're like, what if we could give you a guy who is Claude Giroux, but younger, and signed for 2 seasons after this one at $4.25 million?
Yeah,
Would
extraordinarily reasonable.
That's a really good value.
Yeah. So would that be worth a first round pick and maybe a decent prospect and maybe another pick at the end of that? Or, you know, if Montreal takes bad money in addition to offload, you know, we can work all that out. But the point is, like, the amount of value a guy like Toffoli in particular has, like, this isn't Mike Hoffman, who, by the way, is signed for 2 more seasons after this one. Oof.
Yeah, that was that was a big whiff.
Yeah. Like, the difference in value there is massive, I feel like. So the idea that you're going to keep Toffoli just because, like, he's leadershipy, you can sign leadershipy guys for nothing in the offseason. And the other thing is, if you keep guys around or acquire them even specifically because they're leaders, then you end up with Duncan Keith, folks. And that's
he's done a great job in Edmonton.
Can I throw something else out there that about Toffoli essentially want to be part of the solution? And I don't know how much this has on bearing for the Canadiens if they, again, fully embark on the rebuild and what they plan on doing with getting bodies up here. I hate to bring up the C word here, people, but we are still in COVID times. We are still in a position where in Canada, at least, we have the regulations that we have. And in America, they are very different. And a lot of people like being in America with the looser restrictions compared to what you're experiencing in other Canadian provinces. And if these things continue into next year and the year after or whatever, however long we're going to deal with COVID, can you imagine being a free agent or someone wanting to be traded and some Canadian team comes up and you have the power to say no to a Canadian team trying to get you? And because simply put, you do not want to be in a position where you have to deal with COVID as opposed to being in a state like, I don't know, Florida or whatever. Tyler Toffoli has played in California before, in Montreal now. We all know what it's like. I mean, we just got out of a second curfew in this province in Quebec. Oh, God. And Tyler Toffoli, I mean, he's probably thinking of the team here, but if you really sit down and think about it, dude is also saying, like, hey, I'm totally cool with being up in Montreal as we continue to navigate through COVID and as we continue to navigate through whatever's going on here. I bring up the fact that it might not matter that much considering the fact that they might not look to compete right away. But in terms of getting bodies on this team, like, it might be pretty difficult if you're trying to at least get someone who could be a part of the future for the Montreal Canadiens in free agency, someone who could at least help the rebuild or accelerate the process. And they might be like, I don't know. I'm not sure about playing in Canada over the next few years with this COVID thing. So to hear Tyler Toffoli, again, it's entirely possible he didn't even think about this, but it's something that's quite interesting for I think for me to hear, in light of everything that's going on. And I could also understand what else would he say? Or he could have easily been neutral too. But I don't have the full quote in front of me, but it does sound like someone who wants to be a part of the solution with the Montreal Canadiens. And considering the times that we're in right now, you have to think about it more than just what's going on the ice. You have to think about the way you're living life off the ice as well.
Yeah, let's put it this way with Toffoli, and then we'll move on. What is the lowest bar of return that should be acceptable before you decide maybe it's not worth trading him right now? If the Canadiens say okay, Tyler Toffoli is available at this year's trade deadline. If somebody's offering up a 2023 first round pick, I'm like, okay, bye. But if it's a 2022,
depends on the team. Depends on the team. If Tampa Bay is offering you that 2023 first round pick, are you taking it?
I don't know, man. Anything can happen in a year from now. I feel like anytime that you're trading a year away, I'm surprised teams don't try to do it more, because I know the way that teams value picks, usually they value the current year more than the year on. But if you're a tanking team and you're dealing with playoff teams, it makes way more sense to take a gamble on the following year when that team could fall apart a little bit. I mean, look what happens to the Canadiens every couple of years. If you can deal with a team that isn't a rock solid team, that is trying to get into the playoffs, or is trying to make a 1 year competitive run, if you can get a first round pick in 2023 from the Edmonton Oilers, do that.
Ooh,
that's a different situation. That's a different situation. Like the Tampa Bay Lightning, I mean, yes, they went through the 2019 year where they were one and done, but that's a team that I don't expect them. Then again, you know what? I say I don't expect them to go through some momentous collapse. Watch them just fall off a cliff in 2023, and I'm proven wrong.
Well, the thing with the Lightning in particular, and this is totally off topic at this point, but the thing with the Lightning in particular is, look at what they've done this year when Vasilevsky's out of the lineup. They are one major injury to Vasilevsky. Obviously, they're safe in a playoff position this year and all that kind of stuff, but they're one major injury away from really. They're gonna join the Edmonton we need to trade for a goalie market. And look, Vasilevsky's 26, 27 years old. He's not an old guy, but let's put it this way. Have notable young Tampa Bay Lightning guys gotten seriously injured before? Well, let's ask Nikita Kucherov, Steven Stamkos, Braden Point. They seem to get a lot of injuries down there. Why would Andrei Vasilevsky be any different? I don't know.
Yeah, sure. At least in the case of some of those guys you mentioned, their forward core is so deep that, okay, if Nikita Kucherov can't play, everyone else can pick up the slack. Defense, a little bit of a different story. I mean, defense, even there, you could still do it. At goalie, if the Tampa Bay Lightning find themselves without Andrei Vasilevsky going forward,
bye-bye.
Brian Elliott's there. Are the Tampa Bay Lightning ready to go on with Brian Elliott? I think he's still there as their backup.
He is. You are correct about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I'm
not
trying to think who's their only do they even have another goalie?
Eventually when you win that long, you will have some organizational weaknesses that pop up, and things can go wrong at any time. I mean, we saw they weren't on the same level as the Lightning, but you look back at the 2015-16 Montreal Canadiens, and they started that season. I think it was 9-1.
Yeah.
And then Carey Price blew out his knee, I think. And
was that when he stepped on the puck in warm-ups or whatever? Yeah.
And then he came back early, and the Canadiens were like, no, he's fine. And you watch him, and every time he pushed off that knee, it just completely collapsed. Played 3 games, and then was out for the rest of the year. Mm-hmm. And they went on an absolute historic run of crap where Mike Condon was the guy the whole way through. It actually showed up in my Facebook memories today.
Did he play Winter Classic? They played the Winter Classic that year, right?
Winter Classic
against the Bruins, and I think they just got.
I was at that Winter Classic.
Did they win that one? I think that was the one.
They did. It was a 5-1 game or something like that. Blew them out of the water.
Yeah, it was the one little bit of hope that they had the whole year, and it was a nice little moment for Mike Condon, who was a
those
Boston
jerseys
guy.
Look great too. Ooh,
yeah, beautiful.
Oh man, bring those back. Actually, how about this? I have a UB. Let's put this up to the camera here. From
nice.
From that Winter Classic, because
that's dope.
Love the Montreal Expos.
That's right. You are a big Expos guy. That's right.
Well, not currently.
Well, I mean, not anymore. I mean,
No.
they don't
But
exist.
no one
but-
really is currently.
Yeah, that's right.
There's some people who continue to carry the torch every day in Montreal.
Those
Plenty.
those Habs jerseys, all time greats as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, they are fantastic. Okay, so I threw out a thing earlier on Twitter that I'm gonna bring up, just like a question of the day of what people wanted to see Kent Hughes do, like his first move essentially as general manager.
Draft his son first overall. Move one.
Montreal Canadiens have Jack Hughes.
He's pretty good. I've seen him play a bunch of times this year. He's good.
His kid, Kent
Yeah.
Hughes' kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because what's his name? It's like Ridley or something. Was it?
No, it's Jack. It's Jack.
It's Jack Hughes.
He has another Jack. There's another Jack Hughes. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
and it's Jack Hughes. It's I think his other son's name is Riley, but I might be
Riley.
wrong about that.
Yeah, it's Riley.
A
It's Riley, yeah.
classic 21-year-old white guy name.
Right, and he's already
Someone made the
drafted,
point-
right?
Yes,
Yeah,
he's a
right,
Rangers
yeah.
pick.
Yeah,
He's a
Yeah,
Rangers
Jeff
pick.
Gordon picked him. Jeff Gordon picked him.
That's right.
that's
yeah.
funny. Jeez, these guys.
I think that's
thick as thieves.
hilarious. Yo,
You know,
man, we should have
speaking of-
seen we should have seen this coming, by the way. I realized that this
Spiderweb.
whole we should have seen this coming, that Kent Hughes was the guy that Jeff Gordon wanted all along. Like, even when Jeff Gordon was introduced to the media, like, I don't remember the line verbatim, but one of the things he said was that, like, he'd be open to having perspectives from like different people, even people who were agents. Like, he mentioned the word agent and people thought like, why would he mention agent? And then Kent Hughes' name was kind of lumped into the discussion for potential GMs.
Everybody thought they were talking about Ethan Hunt.
Mission Impossible.
Yeah, the Impossible Mission Force.
Jerry Maguire.
Oh my god.
But yeah,
What's with
like,
Tom
it's
Cruise
just
and
that-
playing different kinds of agents?
Oh,
Terrible.
Jack
wow.
Reacher, another classic one,
This is true.
right?
You know,
Wow.
my wife hates that Tom Cruise is Jack Reacher because he's a
Oh,
short.
Jack
brunette, he's
Jack
supposed to be a
Reacher's
tall blonde.
7 feet tall or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
makes
that's
no
the
sense.
complaint everybody has. But you know what? You watch that first movie, Rutger Hauer, guy missing fingers or whatever, being very creepy. That's like a really solid B+ middle aughts action movie. That movie's very, very good.
It's true. It's not bad.
for what it is, and it gave us the Chris McQuarrie, Tom Cruise connection that has made the last two Mission Impossible movies
Which are
perfecto.
they are fantastic action movies. So I wanted to read a couple of
7
these.
coming out this summer. So just something to think
Oh,
about,
that's right.
folks.
That led to that epic Tom Cruise rant where I was like, "This is the first time I've ever liked Tom Cruise."
I liked him in the Mission Impossible movies.
Yes, I mean on a personal level because he's a goddamn weirdo.
I like
That's really good timing.
Top
I like
Gun.
that joke.
Top
Yeah.
Gun, yeah.
Yeah, he was great in that.
Yeah, so I wanted to read a couple of these out just because I want to give some people their flowers. Noah Bashir, who's on the show once in a while, who's fantastic, says like the first thing she wants them to do is build up their player development department. Essentially, saying like, why aren't they as into it as the Leafs are? Because they have
Yeah.
the money. I think that's something that you could probably rest easy on because everybody that I've talked to about Kent Hughes says that he is like very deep into player development. And that's like people saying like he's one of the best player development agents. It's like his focus. So it appears that that's going to be a focus with the Canadiens as well.
Let me ask you this though. Does it concern you at all that he's coming into an organization that has historically, let's say, struggled to have their high-end picks live up to expectations, and he is now under a guy who just came from the New York Rangers, a team that in recent years has really struggled to have high-end picks live up to the talent and expectations that everybody has. Like this, I'm not joking. That
Yep.
would be to me like your Elias Andersons, your Vitaly
Capo-Caco.
Kravtsovs, Capo Caco. Like you can go down the list. Guys that the Rangers picked, like top 10 picks from the Rangers that have been like you would expect a top 10 pick to be since Jeff Gordon took over the Rangers, it's not so good, folks.
Do you put Alexi Lafreniere in that category too?
I wouldn't yet. I mean,
it's early for Kako too.
Drafted it. Sure it is. And like all these guys are like under 23 years old or whatever. But the point is, like, when you pick a guy first or second overall, you're saying this guy is going to be in the NHL maximum 1 year from today.
Yeah.
You know, and you're saying, and not only that, he's probably going to be pretty good by the time he's 21, 22 years old. And the Rangers like gave up on Lias Andersson. Well, I think he asked to be traded or something like that. But the point being, this would be a little bit of an area of concern for me if I was a Canadiens fan, because the guy overseeing everything, who's even above Kent Hughes, he doesn't have the best track record with this, and obviously, again, the Canadiens don't either. And so this would be an area of focus for me. I would be like, we need to hire 800 scouts.
800 scouts.
We need guys at every USHL game. We need one guy at every single college hockey game all year. That's it. We need to be sure.
What about the counterpoint with Jeff Gordon that, okay, maybe his picks didn't work out in the Rangers, but the Boston Bruins are still reaping the benefits of his work, because he like ran the draft that in 06 that got them like Phil Kessel, Marchand, Lucic. He got a whole bunch of those guys. When he got Chara in that organization, like he was a big reason why the Bruins were the Bruins in the 2010s.
Absolutely. That was 15 years ago.
Yeah.
That's also very true. But some of those guys are still around winning.
Yeah, of course. No, nobody's saying anything bad about Brad Marchand when I'm around. I think he's incredible. No, you won't. I won't. I simply won't allow it.
I won't say it about his hockey playing acumen, but I'll say bad things about Brad.
He got Tuukka Rask too.
His posting is very high quality. You can't say.
Oh, he's an amazing shit poster on Twitter.
So there you go. 5-tool player.
5-tool player. He is fantastic, and he's flat out aged like a fine wine. As much as it pains me to say, he is the most incredible 30-plus-year-old compared to what they did in their 20s that I've seen in recent memory. It's ridiculous. Unreal. But speaking of Boston Bruins connections, let's dig in on something else that I kind of like floated mostly as a joke today. Kent Hughes is Patrice Bergeron's agent, or was before today. Patrice Bergeron's an unrestricted free agent.
Yeah.
Patrice Bergeron also has connections with Gorton, and he was billeted, I believe, by Martin Lapointe, who's also in the Montreal Canadiens organization. How funny would it be to see Patrice Bergeron end up in a Canadiens jersey in a rebuild to mentor like Shane Wright, say they win the lottery or whatever, when Boston he could just not be involved in a crappy team?
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding? Boston sports fans would blow his house up.
Oh, I know. It would be hilarious.
Like, can I
read a text from somebody? I'm not going to say who it is. This is
a text from Patrice Bergeron, folks. Just here we go.
This is just a text from someone. I'm not going to say who they are, but they just randomly texted me. Why on earth does anyone think Patrice Bergeron would want to join a last place team at the age of 37? There is zero effing chance of that happening, no matter who his agent is or was.
Because
the other thing is Patrice Bergeron grew up hating the Montreal Canadiens because he was a Quebec Nordiques fan.
You know, I hear a lot of people talk about that, but the Nordiques stopped existing when he was 10 years old, and almost every Nords fan that I know pretty quickly made the transition to be a Montreal Canadiens fan. Now, I've heard that he said at the draft, when he was drafted by Boston, that he switched to the Bruins. But that was after he was drafted by the Boston Bruins. So, like,
look, sure, but also, then he played for whatever, like 20 years in Boston, right?
True.
So,
but here's something that the Canadiens could do, because, like, provided that they move out an absolute ton of salary this year at the deadline and at the draft, because they're gonna try to accumulate as much as they can, they could turn around and just be like, "Hey, Patrice, here's a 2-year contract, max money." Because it doesn't matter if we spend to the cap or the Montreal Canadiens. We're rebuilding. It does money doesn't actually matter.
No,
in this
I don't think that makes
scenario.
sense. I don't think
And
it, personally.
just line your pockets. You've won. You don't need to be in
I don't
Boston
know.
anymore. The window's
I don't
closing.
know if the Canadiens are going to throw out money at a former Kent Hughes client. Why not throw that money out at Chris Letang?
Darnell Nurse.
Darnell Nurse is already locked up, but like they need the Canadiens as they are right now. I mean, you could tell me wrong. Their most glaring, worst part of their team is their defense. The defense is terrible. They cannot help in transition offensively. They cannot distribute the puck to their forwards when they need to. And more often than not, we're seeing those goals go in that defensive zone. Remember that game against the Arizona Coyotes? The Coyotes, the game
from yesterday, Julian.
The game from yesterday, where they are considered to be the worst team in the NHL. We have Coyotes guys freewheeling in the offensive zone while David Savard and Ben Sherratt are hugging up on dudes near the net and just letting these guys go in. The defense is terrible. Chris Letang, if you're French and you pronounce it that way, would make the defense better. That being said, he's going to want a ton of money. But that makes more sense to me than signing Patrice Bergeron at the age of 37. Not to say that, but go ahead, Ryan.
What makes even more sense is not signing anybody good for like 4 years.
Yeah, that's it. that's what they should do. That's honestly what they should do. They shouldn't do either of them. But if to Andrew's logic, if they're going to throw out money if they have to throw out money at one of those guys, they might as well do it at a guy who's younger, can actually still help out on the back end and in a position of need. It might be able to tutor some of those younger defensemen, like a guy like Alexander Romanov or Jordan Harris, who I think plays at Northeastern, the same school that
yes, he does.
Jack
James
Hughes
Struble as well.
And James Struble as well. Why not have him there mentoring some of those young guys? That makes more sense to me. I mean, not to say that Patrice Bergeron on the Montreal Canadiens in some way, I don't think it makes sense, but you could make an argument that it might make sense, but I don't think it does. But like, I think if you're going to do it, you might as well get Letang.
I think it makes sense purely on a making Boston poop their little diapers.
Well, you're just being Berkshire.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
The other thing to say about that is it would, I don't know if you remember this, but like Johnny Damon famously went from the Red Sox to the Yankees. Like,
I remember that
in the offseason.
Shaved his facial hair and everything.
Yeah, and cut his flowing mane and all that kind of stuff.
His Jesus locks.
That's right. And everybody was like, yeah, I guess we don't give a shit about that guy. Like, it wasn't even that people here were mad necessarily. They were mad, obviously, but they were just more like, fucking have fun, I guess. Who gives a shit? Whatever.
Yeah. They called him Judas. They called him Judas, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. But like,
oh, come on. That's not just like nothing. Getting called Judas is pretty bad. What?
I think players honestly care about that a lot less than fans.
Of course they do. 100%.
I had a chance to interview John LeClaire earlier this year for a betting site that I do some work for, and I asked him about, like, at the end of his career, basically he was the prototypical Philadelphia Flyer, right? Like, he was the guy. It was like him and Eric Lindros, and then he goes and signs in Pittsburgh as a free agent after he gets bought out. And I was like, did people get on you for that? And he was like, I don't remember. I don't think so. It's like, he just doesn't care. Didn't give a crap. He was like, yeah, it was a very different feeling going from Philadelphia and winning than going to Pittsburgh. And we thought that team was going to be good, and we weren't.
All right.
Like, yeah, also from a different time. From a different time. He didn't have to check Twitter and see that fans were going to dump on him for going to an in-state rival or anything like that. But now if a guy does that, like, I was talking about this with my good buddy Tic Tac Tomar earlier today. Like, people who say, like, oh, I don't read the papers, I don't check internet, whatever. There are a lot of people who do. They're lying to you if they tell you that they don't. And in this day and age, wow. Okay. I didn't say that. You look, when
he
Alan
reads
Walsh
everything.
When Alan Walsh comes calling to you, don't call me.
I'm not criticizing. Yeah, he reads everything.
They do that, but like, players will care about that stuff on social media now. And I have a hard time believing that if they were to make a decision like that, they wouldn't at least like acknowledge people getting pissed about that sort of thing.
All right, I have pulled up a list of Kent Hughes's now former clients, and let's go down the list and let's
do it.
Let's look at, should the Montreal Canadiens acquire this man, whether by trade or by signing him in the offseason?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it.
We already said Chris Letang and Patrice Bergeron. I also mentioned Darnell Nurse.
You did.
Next up, in terms of AAV, is the Ottawa Senators' Drake Batherson. Montreal Canadiens should get this man.
I don't think he's moving.
He's not moving.
No, of course
but
he's not moving. None of these guys are fucking moving.
But if the Senators offered him up, that's a young guy. That's a guy.
He's a good player. He's a good player.
Yeah,
he's
on a decent
decent
contract too. Like that's like if the Senators offered him up, depending on the deal. I mean, not saying that they would do this, but like, yeah, easily.
I would say not even depending on the deal. If they call and they say we want whatever, you go, yeah, okay, that works for me.
Yeah, Drake Bath. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Next up, Mike Matheson. Now, this is a guy who might be available. Let's put it that way.
Also a West Island guy.
And very very expensive.
He's like $6 million, more than that?
A little under five.
Okay. I used to work with Mike's brother, and he's a good dude, and it seems like Mike's a good dude too, but no.
Yeah, of course. There you go. Colin White, another Boston College man. Colin White. Mike Matheson also went to BC.
I'm gonna say no. Also, he has not worked out very well at all, has he?
Skosh expensive. I would take him for maybe $1 million less, but $4.75 million for Colin White, that's too much money. Anthony Beauvillier.
Yes.
Signed 3 years, $4.15 million.
I would absolutely go after Beauvillier.
Yeah,
I would.
Player. Nice
Absolutely.
Little player.
Good player, skilled player. Has also played in the postseason. Has come up in big moments. You take him.
Anton Khudobin.
No.
No.
Yeah, no shit. No.
He was on waivers for free, and nobody wanted him this year.
Yeah, and frankly, he's not that expensive. $3.33 million, but signed through next season. He's cooked. He's done. Hey, do you think the Montreal Canadiens would like to get back their old friend Marco Scandella?
I mean, if they were like, I don't know, he's a decent third pair guy. But they don't need him, right?
$2.75 million for Marco Scandella.
It's not the worst deal.
It's a terrible deal. Marco Scandella. Let's put it this way.
It's have David Savard. That's a worse deal.
The Blues are connected to half the defensemen in the league because they want to get Marco Scandella out of their lineup. He's bad. He's not good anymore.
Okay, maybe he's fallen off a bit since the last time I looked at him.
Sergio Modesso's nephew, I think. Yes.
Yeah.
He is.
So.
He is.
Next up, Zemgus Girgensons.
I'm gonna pass.
Still in the NHL. Can you believe it?
Yeah, I was gonna say, is he still playing?
He is.
In the league. How old is he?
Ooh, Zemgus has to be pushing 30, right?
He was the same draft year as Galchenyuk,
just turned 28. He just turned 28.
Ooh, okay.
No, it should be a no. That's correct. Sammy Blais from the Nye Rangers. Sammy Blais.
Injured with an ACL injury, right?
Yeah,
he's Subban took him out for the year with Slew-foot.
Yeah,
that's right. It was for the year.
Well, I think it was an accident. I don't think it was I wasn't conclusive.
That's the one that I think was a legitimate.
That's the one that I think. Yeah, that was a legitimate accident. I think
most of them were not.
But also a guy who was flipped to New York in exchange for Pavel Buchnevich.
Incredible!
Oh,
what a stupid trade that was.
I don't know why you justify that move. That's why.
Unbelievable.
The crazy thing is, apparently Mark Bergevin was trying to trade Arturi Lehkonen last year for Sammy Blais. And it's like, how do you, I really like Lehkonen as a player. I think he's a really good utility player. But how do you go from Lehkonen to Buchnevich? How does Blais' value go up that much?
He did hitting in the playoffs a couple of times. That's it.
NHL GMs. This is why
when Rangers are all about hitting.
Yeah, this is why when everyone's saying the Canadiens have a lot of players with term.
That's true.
This
That's
is why
true.
when people say like, "Oh, the Canadians have lots of players with term, and like you can't move these guys." If the GM and Gorton are good and smart, which they might be, we have conclusive evidence either way yet. You can absolutely move guys. Lou Lamoriello moved Dion Phaneuf with 5 years left at $7
did.
mil per, and got a
did.
second round pick back.
Yeah, he sure did.
Like, you want to talk about incredible GM moves? That's
So they could move Brendan Gallagher if they wanted.
Oh, I think there'd be a line of teams to trade for Brendan Gallagher. I don't think
I
that'd be
agree.
an issue. I think it might be a mistake midway through that contract, but I think there'd be a lineup of teams.
What about this? Next on the list is William Carrier.
I feel like fourth
depth-
line flyer, maybe.
Yeah, he's signed for a few years yet. I think he's got like 2 more after this one.
Mhm.
Next up, Nick Paul.
He's having a good
Sens
year,
guy.
isn't
Yeah,
He's a
he's supposed
decent
to be
player.
Another one.
decent.
I feel like the problem with a
Decent
lot of those Sens is like if you remove them from the Sens, are they good?
Yeah,
You know
hard
what I
to say.
mean?
Because I'm sure Nick Paul is getting like 3.5 power play minutes a night.
Exactly.
For lack of other option. Nathan Bolya is up next.
No,
Oh, yeah,
we've been
remember
there,
him?
done that.
Okay, pass. Nicolas Aube-Kubel from the Colorado Avalanche.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't know much about him.
He was in
I know
Philly
he's a
before he went to
flyer.
Colorado.
Yeah.
He was
Yep,
a
that's
flyer
right.
once upon a time.
Yeah.
I don't know his stats offhand. I wouldn't say no right away. I don't think could be a
He's-
good middle of the lineup guy.
He's on the Colorado Avalanche so far this year. Obviously, stats isn't everything or whatever, but 12 points, goals for percentage, 68.2.
Whoa! I mean, rising tide lifts all boats in Colorado, but that's not a bad
Yeah,
season
no,
for
like
him.
again, as a depth guy, and a shade above even in core season, all that kind of stuff. He can play a little bit. That's the kind of player I think a lot of teams would do well to try to acquire. But I kind of get the feeling you're not going to get Colorado to sell this year.
No, I mean,
That's
I don't
just-
think
that's just a
Colorado
theory I
makes many
have.
mistakes either. They seem
Nope.
to value guys appropriately. One of the other consistent things that were put out there in the answer to the question was sell Ben Sherratt now before he gets injured, and I could not agree
Yep.
more.
Yep, that's
Yep.
true.
With the way this season is gone for the Canadians, like they cannot risk waiting for the deadline for him.
Mm-mm.
No, for sure not.
It just doesn't.
No,
make sense.
we're talking about what a guy like Tyler Toffoli could fetch. Ben Sherratt has been on the hot stove for months now, and people
Yeah, and everyone's saying
keep
first round pick.
first
And-
round pick or nothing else.
Yeah, and like the thing with him is you want to get that not only just before he gets hurt, but before everybody realizes he's not good. That's the other
Yeah,
thing you want.
So why are they pairing him with David Savard right now?
You
Because
gotta
it's
lock it down. Oh, you gotta lock it down. You're gonna be hard to get. You're gonna make it really tough to get to the net. Okay, man. Sure.
it's so ugly, the two of them together. Like,
They're decreasing. It's almost I feel like pairing him with David Savard and nothing against the dude. Like he's trying his best. Everyone on the team is, in spite of what's going on. But I was explaining this to Andrew earlier. There's been so many times tonight, so many times throughout this season for the Montreal Canadiens where you see a goal allowed, and the two guys you see on the ice are Ben Sherratt and David Savard. Like I feel like just him being with David Savard should decrease his trade value. Like, come on, it's ridiculous.
yeah, I thought honestly, like Sherratt got lucky that I guess the Canadians got lucky that Sherratt had that hot shooting streak to start the year, so it kind of like elevated his value a little bit. But my thing was heading into the season, they should have sold him in the summer before people realized that Weber was carrying him so hard. Because it's been obvious. I mean, he got to play with Petrie at the beginning of the year, and even though Petrie was playing terrible from like an offensive standpoint, like the numbers under the hood were still solid for Sherratt. And then Petrie got hurt, and it's just been crazy downhill. Tonight in the Savard Sherratt pairing, 20% on the core seat, minus
That's no
27
bueno.
relative.
Yeah,
That's no bueno.
That's not gonna do it, folks.
No, but you know who
First
would
round
love him
pick, though.
anyway? Kenny Holland.
Yo, everyone is projected that Kenny Holland is still going to do something stupid by this deadline, man. But hey,
He has
maybe
to.
if he signs Evander Kane, he won't have to give up his draft picks to do that stupid move.
He might do something stupid. You know what I do think he is going to do though, and I've been putting this out there all over the place. He's going to trade for Marc-Andre Fleury, and I feel like that actually would be a really solid.
Does Fleury not have a no move clause anymore? Because why would he fucking go to Edmonton?
Well,
why would
he
do that?
Better than playing not in the playoffs for Chicago. You get to be with play with McDavid. There's like something there. Also, I don't think he's moved his family, has he? So
I don't know. Yeah. Well, because if it's me, I'm like, it'd be nice. I'm Marc-Andre Fleury. I'm like 39 years old or whatever. A nice summer off. Head down to the Caribbean.
Thinks like that though?
No, of course not.
I feel like he would have done that once he got traded to Chicago. Also, Cap Friendly says he has a modified no trade clause where he's able to submit a 10-team no trade list.
Avery joined the show and says, Julian, stop speaking that into existence.
Speaking what into existence?
I don't know.
I don't know what he's talking about. I was editing a story from Tariq El-Bashir, who covers the Washington Capitals out in for The Athletic. And the Capitals, there's been talk about whether or not they could be interested in Marc-Andre Fleury. But another name that got thrown out there, and I'm wondering if maybe the Oilers might look into them as well, Jonathan Quick. It's a guy who knows a thing or two about playing in the playoffs.
Didn't he let in 6 goals on 12 shots the other night? 5 of them to Timo Meier.
He knows what to do in the playoffs.
Well, look, hey, if we're going by that, now all of a sudden Tuukka Rask doesn't have any because he got pulled tonight. He got friggin' shelled by Carolina.
Yeah, that was a rough game.
Jeff Gordon got Tuukka Rask, by the way. He was interim GM for the Bruins when they made the trade for Tuukka Rask.
That's right.
That was the interim GM bit for Jeff Gordon. That is one of the best short runs for GM has ever had.
Oh my God. Yeah. He was in the job for like 3 weeks. He's like, what if I built the entire Stanley Cup?
Boston. Yep.
Boston
Seriously.
Bruins.
It's
built the
truly
Boston
incredible.
Bruins.
Okay. So
For
last
Andrew
topic.
Raycroft.
Yeah. No kidding. My God.
Yeah. He also got a first round pick out of that deal, but we don't
Oh my God. The Leafs of old. I mean, they're still basically the same. They just look better. Last topic of the night, the Drouin cross-check. I feel like this is a fairly easy one. They got the call completely right.
3 games minimum. That was an insane. You know what? It was because here's the thing. It wasn't the initial cross-check off.
It was the
one when he's on when he's like on top of him and he cross-checks him in the head and his helmet comes off. That to me is like, oh, he totally meant to do that. And like, it was, that extra step of like premeditation or whatever that player safety, even this player safety department is like, come on, you don't.
But is there that much of a difference between that and what Tom Wilson did to Panarin last year?
Yes.
Where that was a cross check into the back of the head into the ice as well.
Yeah. They would say, yes, it was. It was. Yeah, for sure.
I'm mildly surprised if they
hates Tom Wilson more than I do.
Yeah.
I hate him. So I think he sucks.
I'll be mildly surprised if Drouin gets suspended, not because he doesn't deserve to, but just because NHL players safe. Throw a dart at the board. Like, who knows what
he can't get nothing.
Spin the wheel. Spin the wheel.
Nothing.
Yeah. I mean, a game
I don't know.
Conduct.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think the refs did everything
correctly
in that instance. That's what my takeaway.
Yeah, well, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like the refs in that game, they weren't bad. They had that call to deal with. They had like 2 instances where a Canadiens goal could have been disallowed. They got those right. Like that's the refs.
They tried to calm things down when it got out of control.
Didn't work at all, but they tried.
They tried.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
they did what they could.
That's not a bad night from the Stripes.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, credit where it's due. All right, one last question. Somebody says, "What about Jake Allen for Edmonton?" I feel like that would work if he stays healthy. He fits into their cap situation. I think the Canadiens should trade Jake Allen.
Sure.
I think they could get a decent return for him, but I don't know. I think that Jake Allen would be a backup plan for Edmonton.
Yeah, you can't be like, okay, folks, get ready. Help is on the way. It's freaking Jake Allen. Everybody's like, wait a second.
People like, say better than Mike Smith.
I mean,
Low
people
bar. Outside the Edmonton media, maybe. The Edmonton media, those guys love Mike Smith.
Oh,
let me ask you this. Do you think this was the last Rick Bowness game as coach of the Dallas Stars?
I tell you what, I don't know, but like losing to the Canadiens the way that they did, like that's, if I'm Jim Nill, like I have questions. Like that's not good.
But like his
should.
Team,
I thought about that too. I was like, I don't know about that.
His team played pretty well, though.
To be fair, they played the Montreal Canadiens.
This is also true. This is also true.
They did.
Let's not get too hyped up on how well they played. Again, they put up 110 shot attempts. That's
insane.
A whole lot. But like they're almost guaranteed to miss the playoffs. They need to play at let's see here. I have it in front of me. They need to play at like 100-point pace the rest of the season to make the playoffs. These guys can't win more than 4 games in a row without losing 6 games in a row.
Yeah. They're
It's
just not a great team.
No.
There's too many guys who are on the wrong side of 30, signed for a lot of money.
Yep. But speaking of paces, before tonight's game, do you know what the pace the Montreal Canadiens had to play at to make it to the likely playoff cut line of 107 points in the Eastern Conference?
I mean, I knew that they were on pace for 15 wins, so I'm assuming it's a lot.
So I do this every like 10 games or so. I look at this. The rest of the season, they need to play it, or not including tonight. So the numbers change a little bit. They need to play at a pace for 157 points over an 82 game season. I don't think they're going to do it.
They would need to run the table. And who knows how much?
No, I think mathematically they couldn't get. They would need to play at a pace for 150 points. No, you're right, because there's 164 available points. They can drop like maybe 3 more points the rest of the season, and then it's over.
If you're a Canadiens player in the locker room, you see and hear those odds, just be like, we're running the table. We're doing it.
Run the table the rest of the season.
It started tonight. They're off and running.
Undefeated in the Kent Hughes era. Undefeated in the Kent Hughes era.
That's all they needed.
That's the motto the rest of the season. Can you imagine? No, it's too insane.
No.
Too insane.
No.
Again, that's to get to the potential playoff cut line.
Oh, imagine doing that and you lose by like a tiebreaker. And just finish.
That would be the coolest thing that ever happened. I'm sorry, that would be the greatest thing that happened in the history of sports. If a team's like, we're gonna rip off 46 games in a row, we're not gonna lose one of them. Whoa, that's crazy. Did you make the playoffs? Well, you know what?
No.
About that.
Yeah. Came down to a tiebreaker where we had to play against like, I don't know, what's some team that's also doing bad. You have to play the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah.
And literally what had to happen is we just had to go to overtime and just get the point and get in. But we called a timeout with like a minute left. And then the Senators scored to win the game. That's essentially what
what happened to the Oilers on Saturday night. Like just completely shit yourselves in the late third period.
Or what happened to the Oilers every game of the playoffs last year, where they're like, we're in control. It's the Jets. Nope. They're not even good. Oh, we're gonna give up 3 goals in the third period out of nowhere.
Go Koskinen hours, folks.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah. Didn't that almost happen to the Senators a couple years ago with the Hamburglar run? Where they won like 20 of 25 games or something like that to end the year. And they just barely made it in. And then the Canadiens stomped them in the playoffs.
Yeah. And Curtis Lazar ate a hamburger off the ice.
That was a fantastic moment. The Senators have had some fun moments, despite them being a largely terrible team that have wasted the primes of some amazing players. Very familiar for Canadiens fans.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta find ways to have fun when you're the worst team or the worst organization in the league.
You think Ottawa is the worst?
Absolutely. Who's worse?
Wow. Worse than Edmonton?
Yeah. Edmonton made the playoffs on purpose a few times.
I mean, they had McDavid.
Right. Which makes them better than Ottawa because Ottawa doesn't have Connor McDavid.
But I mean, everything good that Edmonton has accomplished has mostly been due to draft lottery luck.
Mm-hmm. And yet, it still happened.
Yeah.
They have the new arena. Their owner isn't constantly threatening vaguely to move the team.
That's true.
Although,
Calgary, though. Ooh.
Hey, nobody said anything. Obviously the other one, the other contender for worst organization is Arizona. They don't have a rink for next season.
I mean, they don't have
that strikes me as a
$10.
No.
They've been. Tell you what, with the Senators, though, in the last 5-6 years, they've been in the conference finals more than the Edmonton Oilers have.
Yeah,
that's true.
And you know what?
They have that.
They're
within an OT from going to a final.
Oh, if I fucking hear about that again, holy shit!
Gonna get Ryan going again.
Oh my god!
Sorry.
They almost did it. They almost did it, and then got their throat slit instead. They fucking got destroyed. And even if they had made the final, you ever see the movie Independence Day? That's what would have happened to them.
My god!
Can you imagine how many players on the San Jose Sharks wish that they would have scored in that overtime?
Sure.
Instead of facing the Penguins in the final that year.
Oh my
would have
god!
Walked over them.
It would have been a bloodbath. But let's leave it at this. Tonight, it was a matchup of two teams that fraudulently went to a Stanley Cup final and got smoked by the Tampa Bay Lightning. You guys, the Montreal Canadiens, this is your first game since those two cup finals against the Stars. This is your first game. You now are the backup Stanley Cup champions of fake cup finals. You did it.
The backup Stanley Cup COVID champion thing.
And those two teams had Corey Perry get so close.
That's right.
To winning that cup. And Corey Perry said, you know what? I'm tired of losing to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Let me just go there and
I can't
win a
lose
damn chip
to
with
them now.
I can't lose to them.
Someone said it was Nashville in the final that year, not San Jose. I mean, yeah, okay. Same thing.
Also
Nashville would have walked over
all
them
over
too.
those fellas. Yeah.
Because frankly, Nashville outplayed. That's right. PK would have won.
And PK Subban would have won, and you know how people would have reacted here.
And PK is a Senators killer too, or at least he was when he was in his prime. And frankly, Nashville outplayed the Penguins in that series too. It was just that Pekka Rinne was awful.
Yeah.
Yep.
Biggest arc from great to bad in one playoffs for a goaltender who made the Stanley Cup Finals that I've ever seen. But anyway, let's leave it there because I've taken up a lot of your guys' night and it's late. Awesome time hanging out with you both. Before we close it off, first Ryan and then Julian, tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me. We mentioned it off the top here. eprinkside.com. If you sign up for a 1-year subscription, an annual subscription, and use the code ILOVEP, all one word, you get, I believe, 3 extra months tacked on at the end of that 12 months. So it's 15 total. 15 total months. What a bargain, many are saying. And then also, of course, the Puck Soup podcast. We're recording tomorrow, and I sent Sean McIndoe from The Athletic our outline, and I just wrote Oilers at the top of it. So it should be a fun one.
You're just riffing.
Yeah, we're going. We're going to call somebody pissy. It's going to be great.
Julian?
I can't wait to hear that one. All right, let me take the deep breath. Check me out at The Athletic. Subscribe to The Athletic because that's where all the great content comes from. Brand new episode of the Chris Johnston Show coming out on Thursday. Gee, I wonder what we're going to talk about then. Brand new episode of Zone Time with Yahoo Sports should be coming out tomorrow. Gee, I wonder what we're going to be talking about. happened over the last 24 hours, I suppose. As Andrew mentioned partway through the show, he will be once again on Hockey Inside Out, the show, the Montreal Canadiens show on the Montreal Gazette. A lot of Montreal mentioned in the last few moments there. He'll be on that show for this week with Rick Green and Stu Cowan. And I think that's it.
Perfect. Thanks, guys.
I think I got everything.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks everyone for watching. Like I've been saying at the end of every show here, everyone who's tuning in to this show while dealing with this shit show of a team, I love you. Seriously.
Sickos.
Absolute
True freaks.
sickos. We'll steal from the Senators. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you on Thursday for a late